Okay, so now let's go ahead and create the wheel for the controls. So we're going to create this part in here. Let me go ahead and change the angle. So we're going to create the wheel in here, and then we're going to create the controls, so the menu, fast forward, or the next and previous, play and pause, and all of that. To do that, we are going to use the cylinder. So I'll go ahead and close that. So let's go back to the Create tab, and then I'll click on Geometry, and I'll click this time on the cylinder. Now I'll go ahead and maximize the front viewport. So again, the way you do that is you can right click on the viewport, or you can click on the viewport, either or, and then you can click on maximize viewport toggle, this tool in here, and I'll start creating the cylinder from somewhere in here. I'll make it about this big, and let's take a look at how it looks. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Now we cannot see the cylinder in here, because if I go to the left viewport, take a look at where the cylinder is. It is on the other side of the iPod, so I need to bring this forward like this. Now notice that the monitor is synced in, so if you want to change the scale, you can do that. So you can change the scale like that, so you can make it a little thinner, and then you can bring that in there, so you still get that in there. Now here's the what do you call it? The wheel that holds the controller. So let me go ahead and do a render like that. Let's see how that looks on the even the monitor. Maybe we might have to adjust the height and the width of the monitor as well. So let's go ahead and do a render of this. So the shortcut to do a render, or to render that viewport, is Shift Q. And here how that looks. So I'll move the I'll go ahead and move the monitor a little bit up, and then maybe change the width, make it a little bit smaller on the width. So let's do that. Move that a little bit up, the width somehow like that. Okay, that's good enough. Alright, now I'm going to select the cylinder, and I'll go ahead and here from this render, the edges, or the roundness around the cylinder, is not as smooth. So if I zoom in a little closer, you'll notice the difference. So here's when I zoom in a little closer and I rendered that. Take a look at the roundness for the cylinder. It's not as smooth. See, we have those rough edges around. So to get a smoother cylinder, we can increase the sides. I'm going to increase and get more sides in there. Now this looks a lot smoother. Okay, so let's do a render of that. Let's see how that looks. That's a lot better. Okay, let me change actually the way it's rendering. So I'll move to, it's rendering on a ray trace mode right now. I'll go and change that. Now yours should be by default on a different mode. This is actually doing a mental ray mode. There we go. So this should render a lot faster. So when I hit Shift Q, this will do a much faster render, just like that. Okay, so let me zoom out, or I'll select all the shapes and I'll click on Extend All. Okay, there we go. So now let's change the color of the wheel. So I will make this just a little bit darker. Maybe I'll pick this one up. If you don't have these color choice, you can always add a custom color. So you can pick a color from here and add a color that you like from here, something like that. Let's say I'm gonna add a darker one like that, and then we can see which one we like best. So let's add that. Let's see how that looks. That's a little too strong. So let's do another one. Go a little lighter. Okay, let's take a look at that. That looks when I render it. Not bad. Let's move the wheel a little bit higher, somewhere in here. Let's see how that looks. Okay, we can work with that. Alright, so that's for the wheel. Now let's go ahead and duplicate the wheel. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to select the Select and Uniform Scale tool. Let me actually maximize that viewport. So I'll maximize the front viewport, and I will hold shift down to make a duplicate of the cylinder. At the same time, I will scale that down. So I'll do something like this. There we go. And then hit OK. Okay, now I will move back to the left viewport and bring that to the front so we can see it. Let me zoom in just a little bit. There we go. And now I will make the middle part of the wheel the same color as the body of the iPod, which is white. Okay, so let's go ahead and render that. Let's see how that looks. That's exactly what we want. So next, let's go ahead and create the controllers. So we're gonna create the controls, the menu, next and previous, and play and pause. Now, to write down or to model text, to create text in 3D Studio Max, you would have to go to the Create tab in here, click under Shapes, and then click on Text. Now in here, let me scroll down. Just like any other software, you have the font family. You can make it italic, underline, play around with the alignment, size, kerning, and so on and so forth. But the text that you want to have in there, you can type that in here. So in here, I'm going to type in menu. That's what we want to have. So right now, we're building this. We're building the controls. So menu. Now, to bring that somewhere in the viewport, you can just click anywhere in there. This will make the text very large, so we'll scale that down. So there it is. I'll zoom out, and this is how big it made the word menu. Now I'll click on the scale tool and zoom this down. There we go. So take a look at the steps for the text. They are very important, and make sure you follow the steps along, otherwise you won't be able to actually see the text in there. So now that we have the text, that does not mean that when we render it, we will see the text to where we want, even though we move the text. So here, I'm going to come to the viewport, the front viewport, and let's say I want to move the text in here, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Okay, let's say that's what we want. So even though we have that in there, when we do a render, we're not going to see the text. Okay, we don't see the text at all, even though it's in there. Well, first of all, let's find out where the text is positioned on the left side. So if I look at from the left, I can see that the text is behind, and I can bring the text in the front. Okay, now even I brought the text in the front, so I can see the text in the viewport, the perspective viewport. So here's the text that says menu, and I do a render, I still don't see anything in there. So for the text, it is very important that you can you extrude the text. So I'll go here and I'll say under modify, I'll add a modifier, and the name of the modifier I'm going to add is extrude. What this means, here if I zoom in a little closer, I can extrude this to come, have more of a width and so on and so forth. Okay, and I'll do an extrude of maybe 2 for the amount. And let's change the text to the body of the iPod, which is white. And let's take a look when we render how that looks. That's not bad. So let's move the text. I'm going to come back to the front view and I'll zoom in. I'll move the text a little bit up Maybe scale it just a little bit down. Move it up a little bit, and that's not bad. Let's do a render of that. Okay, we can work with that. So that is menu.